Hi, I'm Pete Holloway. I'm a Senior Vice President with Hazlett, Bird & Watson in Wheeling, where I'm a financial advisor. I'm also a certified financial planner, and as always, it's my great pleasure to welcome you to On Money. Today, my guest is Russel Esque. He's the manager of the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport. He's a Wheeling native, graduated from Wheeling Park, and has a degree in biology from WVU. He'd worked for a contractor for about 20 years, and again, he is the airport manager at the airport. He has a 25-year-old son and a 20-year-old daughter, and I want to thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Sure. First of all, for the viewers, he's sitting in one of my favorite rooms in the entire Ohio County. If you haven't been to the airport, you got to go up and visit because there's some really neat historical stuff in there. And this is a room where basically pilots who've flown in and are waiting for the passengers to come back sit, and it's a really neat space. Anyway, could you give us a brief history of the Wheeling, Ohio County Airport?
Sure. The Wheeling, Ohio County Airport is located roughly 8 miles north of Wheeling on Route 2, off Short Creek and Gertie's Point Road. The Wheeling, Ohio County Airport opened in 1946. It was more commonly known then as Stifle Field. During that time, 3 airlines provided air service. Those airlines included Capital Airlines, All American Airways, and Lake Central Airlines. Unfortunately, we lost commercial service at this airport around 1970. And that was due to a number of reasons. Most prominently, probably due to the Essential Air Service Act. But since the 70s, we've operated as a general aviation airport. And in the past, we've had, charter services and flight schools, aircraft maintenance, and paint shop. Currently, we've lost most of those businesses, and we are doing our best to try to get those back.
That's great. Now, in terms of the aircraft that come in, people that are on the flight path will see small planes, Cessna 150s, and they'll see some pretty heavy duty corporate jets from time to time too. And of course, you've had Air Force One in several times. What other interesting planes, of course, Air Force One's a pretty darn interesting one. What other interesting planes have landed at the airport?
We get a lot of interesting planes. You mentioned the Air Force One. That's probably the most notable one. All the military aircraft are interesting, even the current ones and the past ones. We get some World War II aircraft in here that are privately owned. Now we just had one in yesterday getting fuel. Other interesting aircraft, blimps sometimes park here for the night when they're traveling through. Some of the modern day aircraft are interesting. There's one particular aircraft that has engines placed in reverse, and also they're coming out with very small jets that are pretty interesting. I would say, and there was a construction helicopter in here a while back that was very interesting. It has a crane that they use for heavy lifting from the air. So that was a looking aircraft.
So if people want to come up, there's probably not a lot of activity, but they'd be sure to see something. Now, tell us a little bit about your duties. What, as airport manager, what are you responsible for doing?
Well, I guess I would be overseeing everything up here. Safety on the runways. We make sure the runway lights are all working, that there's no debris on the runway. We keep the grass cut, and we also sell fuel. So I'm responsible for ordering fuel and pricing it, and making sure that all gets paid for. We have tenants on the field that we work with, and also I do the scheduling for the employees, compliance with EPA and our quality control program with our branded Phillips 66 fuel, and probably a lot of other things that I'm not mentioning.
Okay. About how many gallons of fuel do you, on average, sell in a month?
So on average, I order about 7,500 gallons twice a month. That's for jet fuel. And avgas might get 4,000 gallons, maybe 3 or 4 times a year.
Okay. Now, does when you order it, does the county put the price a little higher to make some money on it, or is it just straight pass through?
Yeah, we mark it up. It's a consistent markup. Unfortunately, the prices are really high right now, so it's tough tacking that extra on too. But you have to, with the prices increasing like they are recently.
We're all used to that. How many aircraft are housed on the airport property right now?
We have about 23, plus what the guard has next door here. Of our 23, we have 16 single engine, 2 multi-engine, 4 helicopters, and 1 jet.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Didn't know there were any up there. Now there's the airport has a tower, and one of the things that I used to have a pilot's license. One of the things that's going on is that there are 2 runways, depending on, and so planes can land into the wind always, and they cross each other like an X. And the reason for the tower, one reason is you don't want a pilot coming on one runway and another one coming in on another runway. This is not an FAA tower. And can you explain what kind of tower it is? But it gives the same level of service.
Yes, they definitely give the same level of service, and it is definitely a good program. It's called the Federal Contract Tower Program, and there's roughly 250 some, I think maybe 58, I think was maybe the latest number I saw, contract towers across the United States. Those towers are put out to bid, I think about every 5 years. And I think there's a handful of companies that bid on those towers. So the controllers are hired by, employed by a private company, and then that company is under contract with the FAA. It's a cost-effective program, and they do handle a lot of traffic in the total picture of things.
Now the tower is only open during daylight hours, is that correct?
Well, first of all, we're open. The tower in the airport is open every day of the year. The hours of operation for the tower, which you can land any time of the day, but under controlled airspace, those hours are 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. weekdays and 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. I'm sorry, we're here from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. The tower opens at 10 a.m. and closes at 8 p.m. Saturday and Sunday.
Now, someone's out there is probably thinking, well, I'm flying in at night. Who turns the lights on? How do we turn the runway lights on?
Good question. We have pilot control lighting. So if you click their mic 3 times or 5, it brings the lighting up to different settings.
Yeah, again, I remember doing that. And it's funny because all of a sudden you get to see that runway. Now, our airport has some extra special features to it. It's not just runways. We have an instrument landing system. Maybe you could talk about that.
Yes, we do. We have a full instrument landing system, ILS as it's commonly known as. And in that ILS system, there's a glide slope and a localizer and a mouse. The glide slope is for your vertical guidance. The localizer is your horizontal guidance. And the mouse is the medium intensity approach lighting, which is before the runway. Now, if you come in the other direction on that same runway, that runway, the ILS is runway 3, but if you come in from the other direction, that would be runway 21. The Nav Aids on that side are the VASI, which is a visual approach slope indicator, basically a box on the side of the runway with some lights in it that helps you with the correct angle of approach. And then there's also a runway and identifier lights on each side of the runway, marking it. We also have two weather stations. One's at the end of runway 16, and one's at the intersection in what we call our triangle. And that gives a good reading for the winds right there at the intersection. And we also have our nav here, and that's area navigation, which is becoming more popular with GPS.
Now,
I'm sorry, I might add that all of the Nav Aids here at this airport are FAA owned and maintained.
okay. Now, do you test them, or does a FAA person come in, or how's
The
that work?
Yeah, fortunately, the FAA does all the testing and maintenance and upkeep on those Nav Aids.
If you live in the area, you've seen helicopters flying around a lot. They're also housed or located up at the airport. Tell us a little about that.
The Army National Guard, yes, so they're based over on the east side of the field, and I think that they have been there since about the early 90s.
Mm-hmm. Okay. How many? You said how many helicopters were there?
I think they have about 8, but I'm not sure the exact count.
Okay, let's get back to the glamour of Air Force One. What happens when you obviously you're going to be contacted well in advance, and I'm sure Secret Service and a number of other government agencies show up just to make sure everything is okay for that. But what's that like? Do you have to close the airport, or can people land when the plane's on the ground? How does that work?
Oh yeah, yeah. So you're right. We get a call about a week ahead of time, and it's Secret Service, and they'll show up and check the place out. But when Air Force One is on the ramp, you can't have any traffic near it, and even if the president is present, you can't have any movement. So it's a lot of work to coordinate that. The Secret Service does a real good job. Obviously, they do it everywhere they go, so they're used to it, and we're starting to get used to it because we've had the former vice president, and former president in here too. So it's a lot of work, and it's a challenge, but it's very rewarding in the end.
And because I went up to watch because being a pilot, like to see these things. I wanted to see Air Force One land the last time. Another huge plane comes in too that carries the car and Secret Service vehicles and all sorts of stuff. Tell us about that too, because that's really big.
Yeah. So first, seeing the 757, which is the Air Force One that they bring to our field because we have the 5,000-foot runway. Mm-hmm. That is amazing seeing that come in, and they even practice here sometimes. And that is pretty neat seeing 757 do touch and goes. But the other aircraft you're referring to is the C-17, I believe. And that has a wingspan that's even wider than our 150-foot runway. So that is definitely a neat aircraft. And it's very impressive that the short distance that it needs to take off.
Have to be with that, and with that much weight too.
Yes.
Now you mentioned, obviously with Pittsburgh Airport so close, it does not make economic sense for a commercial airline to locate here. What kinds of developmental things are you looking for at the airport? Are you working on ideas or thoughts or?
Yeah, we're working very hard on trying to get some new ideas and reinvigorate the airport with businesses and possibly flight school. We had a little restaurant up here in the past. There's been maintenance in the past. So all those are ideas that we look at to try to bring back in the future. And there's also some other things out there swirling around that we haven't really made certain yet, but hopefully we'll see some
Probably can't talk about them just yet. So
yeah, some improvements, some changes, some more movement up here in the near future.
You're doing improvements on the airport right now on the runways, right?
Yes, we are. I'm looking out the window right now at the work. They're working on runway 16 and 34. It's a asphalt patch, crack seal or crack repair and seal coat, and markings repainted at the end. And that's on our shorter secondary runway. The same project is going to be done on our main runway, and that'll start in July, hopefully. This project is probably just about halfway through.
And there's other equipment up there, probably for snow removal. Do you have fire equipment up there?
We do not have fire equipment. We rely on the local fire departments for emergencies, but we do have snow removal equipment, and we're hoping to get some more in the near future too. But ours is getting up there in age. Fortunately, it's still working, but we don't want to take any chances.
Great. Again, for the viewers, it's worth it to drive out to the airport just to see it, and also to go to the lobby. Can you describe the lobby and the room that you're in just a little bit, because it really is a neat display.
It really is a neat terminal. It resembles a museum. A lot of times people call it a museum, but I'm in the newly formed area. We did a renovation back in about 2012 that really changed the look of the terminal. This little room that I'm sitting in now was made to be the pilot's lounge, and we have a lot of displays in the terminal that makes it appear to be a museum, and a lot of people come up and look at them and spend about 20 minutes or a half hour looking at the displays and reading the plaques. A lot of informational plaques.
You've got uniforms from stewardesses and pilot captains from 40, 50 years ago.
Yeah, we have a lot of different displays. So we have, World War I and World War II displays. World War I displays has like probably 25 model airplanes and informational plaques and artifacts. The World War II display features the B-17 yoke and a Bombardier, if I pronounce that correctly, autopilot mechanism. And also 4 local residents are recognized in that display also, including their uniforms and awards and banners. We have a wall that displays early aviation with some information of Charles Lindbergh and a local resident at the time, Joan Stifel. There's also on one wall the big propeller that was found on the field, still in its crate. I believe it's off of a Constellation. On that same wall, there's the information of the 4 airlines that provided service, the dates that they provided service and their routes, which is pretty interesting. Also, we have a real radio engine on display, which proved to be reliable in a lot of airplanes back in the day. There's the what we call the presidential display that depicts or shows pictures of the presidents that have visited the airport, and some of the ones in the past have been former President Trump, former President Bush, former President Reagan, Eisenhower, Nixon, and also Kennedy. And also we have a new addition to the terminal. It is two displays, a helicopter pilot, jet pilot uniforms from Iraq Freedom operations, and also paintings. Each display has an accompanying mural for it too. It's really neat. That was just added last fall, and it's really something to see.
That's great.
Also,
well, again, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. We have so many displays out there. You have to
tell us more.
You have to come up and see them all for sure. But we have the old beacon that was used for 50 years down here. And also a real neat display is in the centerpiece of the terminal is a 3D model of the airport, which is always an attraction, and it has functioning runway lights.
That's great. Well, I hope the viewers will take an afternoon off and head up there, because it is a neat place, and the expectation is that it's going to start picking back up. And it's, in terms of economic development for the area, it's one of the really special sites that's available. And I have a feeling sooner or later, we're going to be seeing some neat things coming out. I want to thank you for your time and the good work that you're doing up there. I'm Pete Holloway. We'll be looking forward to seeing you next week.